So in this lost forgotten story that happens around in Peter's early years, we see him finally try to take on the mostly unknown and obscure first goblin, the Proto-Goblin. Now my name is AJ here at the Hero Informer, and let's get into it. Now in the last part we picked up and saw Spider-Man, learning what it meant to be a hero and the dangers of having the great power that he possesses. And we might even see a little bit more of that here, but for now we pick up with Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy, as they're in the middle of a little family drama with Norman Osborn. Because as you know, he is the Green Goblin, and even though he isn't that here yet, he still isn't the best father, as future Peter even goes on to say, who by the way, future Peter Parker, narrates over this past story, with him even saying, over the years I've tried not to hate him, to even forgive him. He was mentally ill, I try to tell myself, not responsible for his actions, and over time I let go of the hate, but as for the forgiveness, never, at least not in this lifetime. As we see Norman Osborn brush off his own son, saying I don't want to be disturbed, but for now as Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy are there, they decide to leave, to go do something fun. And where do they go? Well, they head off and go to a little party, to relax a little. And while they're at this party, Harry and Gwen get split up a little bit. And because Gwen doesn't know anybody here, she kind of just stands in a corner doing her own thing. But she then gets approached and kind of harassed by this random drunk guy. And as things escalate a little bit, he then grabs her wrist. But of course, Gwen Stacy is the daughter of a police captain, so her dad has been giving her self-defense lessons as soon as she can walk. As she trips, pushes the guy, knocking him back. But of course, that isn't the only wild thing that happens at this party, as we see somebody else crash it too. The Proto-Goblin, breaking through the window, screaming, Harry Osborn, I have come for you. And what does this red hulking prototype goblin want with Harry? Well, we will see very shortly. And as Harry and Gwen try to run away, unfortunately the Proto-Goblin is able to catch up, literally grabbing and snatching Harry away. But for now we cut back over to Spider-Man, seeing him swinging through the city of New York. Just swinging aimlessly, trying to avoid going home. Because at this point in time in the timeline, Uncle Ben has just died, meaning Peter Parker's and Aunt May's relationship and experience at home is really strained and awkward due to the massive loss. But just then Spider-Man's spider sense goes off, which he says is an actual relief, as it gives him something to do and someone to save. But even due to the intensity of the spider sense, it was pretty clear that whatever it was nearby and dangerous. And just then he spots it, the red Proto-Goblin climbing up the side of a building with Harry Osborn. And of course, this is a young 15-year-old Peter, who at this point doesn't really have any experiences with any supervillains or superpowered people. For him, it's mostly just been your average human crook and criminal. Because Spider-Man even goes on to say that in this moment, in seeing this hulking creature, he was terrified. His first instinct was to run, to put as much distance between him and that beast as possible. But that's not what heroes do, is it? As he swings in, kicking him in the back, freeing and saving Harry Osborn for the moment. But of course, being the young, inexperienced hero Peter now is, when he kicked the Proto-Goblin, freeing Harry Osborn, he unfortunately made him fall. And as he is plummeting to the ground, he shoots out a web line to save him, while safely putting him to the ground. But because Spider-Man is now focused on saving Harry, he doesn't see as a Proto-Goblin comes back, punching him from behind, with Spider-Man going on to say, the goblin hit me, and it really hurt. And considering all the raw emotion and unexperienced grief and rage I was sitting on, I couldn't wait to hit him back. Because as I said before, Spider-Man had just recently lost Uncle Ben, plus Aunt May has been going through some financial issues, making his life as Peter Parker all the more difficult. So Spider-Man, seeing how this red goblin has him by the neck right now, Spider-Man decides to let loose, to hit him with more strength than he would a normal person, thinking this beast of a creature could take it, as Spider-Man backhands him hard, shattering someone's stair steps. But of course, in this moment, Peter wasn't thinking, he was just reacting, and he gets up saying, oh no. As previous before, he accidentally let loose a little too much to some random kid trying to rob a convenience store, putting him in the hospital and almost killing him. So Spider-Man thinks the same thing has happened here. Now, even though this villain is obviously not some normal person, Spider-Man still doesn't want to kill, especially on accident, with Peter going on to think, oh no, I've done it again, lashed out without thinking. What if I've broken his back, paralyzed him? I'm unable to contain or control this incredible strength that is still so new to me. As Spider-Man even goes up to the villain saying, hey, are you okay? But of course, the Proto-Goblin's muscles isn't all for show, as he is pretty durable as well, meaning he survives as encountered, as he then lunges for Spider-Man, swiping at him. And here something really interesting happens, a testament to Spider-Man's character, for better or for worse. You see Spider-Man then goes on to explain how the Red Goblin came for him. He lunged at him suddenly and viciously, and Spider-Man just kind of stood there. He let him grab and hit him. Why? Because Spider-Man was so afraid that if he fought back, let loose, that he would kill him, unable to control or regulate the great power that he holds within him. because at this point he is still very new to his superpowers and is of course 15 years old. But as this new Proto-Goblin is literally stomping on Peter's head, he then turns around and looks at Harry Osborn, his real target, as Gwen Stacy is also there too. And so he switches and starts to lunge for them. But before he can do anything, Spider-Man webs him in the back, pulling him away, with him going on to continue saying, "I used to fantasize about standing up to the bullies," knocking the cruelty and arrogance right out of them. But fantasy and reality are two very different things. You see, when you actually hit someone, hurt them, it is not exhilarating, it is horrifying. Just showing you the kind of hero that Peter really is. You see, even though technically Spider-Man has the power to really lay him out right here and right now, beating him senseless, there is also a risk that with his great power, he could literally kill this person. And right, this isn't even a normal person by any means, he is a giant hulking red beast. But still, Spider-Man isn't the Punisher. He's not just going to take a life on the whim, especially if he has other options, and is not the last resort. But of course, Spider-Man still has to distract the Goblin, keep him away from Harry, and if doing that means he gets the crap kicked out of him, then so be it. As the Goblin grabs him by the neck, throwing him hard as he bounces off cars and through a building. But just then finally some good news happens for Peter as the cops then arrive, causing the Red Goblin to escape and scurry off. But of course the police are not on Peter's side, meaning Peter has to get out of there pretty quick too. And with future Peter making a statement about his whole life and being a hero like Spider-Man. You see, violence has always been a part of his life, ever since that spider sank its fangs into him. And the truth really is, he's always hated it. As you see, he hits the bad guy and the bad guy hits him. They were always one punch away from somebody dying. But you know what's one thing he doesn't hate? Why he even keeps putting the mask on and swinging on webs for all these years? Well, because even though he has to go out and risk his life every day and risk hurting someone just as equally, he does it because he helps people. Because he can make a difference in the lives of perhaps millions. But we then also see Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy with the police, as Norman Osborn then finally arrives on the scene. And of course, after a life and death situation, you would think Norman would be more caring of his son, making sure he was okay. But instead, Norman Osborn snaps at him, saying, "How could you let this happen? You didn't even put up a fight? You're an Osborn, and it's time to grow a spine." Walking away from Harry Osborn, his son, even leaving the police dumbfounded and confused. With Spider-Man going on to say, "I believe that Norman genuinely loved his son, but I also think that he was ashamed of that love. He viewed it as a weakness. And weakness is the thing Norman Osborn loathed or hated most in the world." As you cut over and see Spider-Man finally arriving home after that whole experience and tough day, with him going on to further talk about love, saying Norman is wrong. Love doesn't make us weak, but it does make us vulnerable, if not nurtured and respected. As you see Aunt May knock on Peter's door, but Peter's still in his Spider-Man costume, and after taking a rough beating from the prototype Goblin, he is in a pretty rough shape, with bruises on his face. So as he opens the door for his Aunt May, she even gasps in disbelief, saying, "Dear God, what happened to you?" And as Peter tries to say it's nothing, Aunt May suddenly snaps as well, saying, "No big deal. My husband is dead and my nephew comes home beaten and bruised like some hoodlum, and you have the audacity to tell me it's no big deal? How could you be so thoughtless, so irresponsible, so unbelievably cruel?" As she leaves, slamming the door in her little moment of grief and hurt. And of course, as any young teen would, Peter takes this hard, but this moment here, Peter down on his luck crying, also parallels to something else, the prototype Goblin, as he's doing the same thing, down and miserable. As you see, he is not some mustache twirling villain just wanting to hurt anybody he can. No, he is a victim himself. He didn't want to become what he is now. He was tricked by Norman Osborn, used as a guinea pig for the Goblin formula. But of course, it had some side effects, meaning he is what he is now. And because of it, he can't go back to the one thing he loves most in the world, his family, and to live a normal life with said family. And if you've seen the last part, you would know that there is this mysterious woman with him, who seemed to help him out only on the condition that he brings her Harry Osborn, which is why he went on that whole battle in the first place. And who is this woman and why does she want Harry Osborn specifically? Well, as it turns out, this is none other than Emily Osborn, Norman Osborn's wife, or Harry Osborn's mother. And if you don't know much about her, well, she faked her death and ran away, because even she's seen the monster that Norman Osborn was becoming. But for whatever reason, she wants her son back. And right now, she is trying to use the Proto-Goblin to try and make that a reality. But what does all this mean? Well, we won't know until the next issue and video, as this one comes to a close. Now, if you enjoyed this one, make sure to leave a like, or subscribe if you enjoyed this content, or thought this video was entertaining. Now, as always, this is the Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.